Hello and welcome to Early Music Day. It is 21st of March. It is Bach's birthday. It is also the equinox and a bunch of other days, including International Poetry Day. No better time to dive deep into early music and what early music can do. For the first time, REMA has invited two ambassadors who we'll meet in a second. But first, I wanted to say a bit about myself. My name is Albert Edelman. I'm the artistic director of B-Rock Orchestra in Ghent, and we're coming to you today from Amuse in Antwerp. Amuse, a stage where the best of the best in early music has performed for 20 years now. They're celebrating a big birthday. Maybe a little bit about what REMA stands for. It is the European Early Music Network, reuniting festivals, concert halls, ensembles, researchers, universities, everybody wearing all their hats, everybody professionally involved in early music. And what has been very exciting for this network has been a development where the discussions are real, where we dive into the repertoire, into the business side also. So this is the perfect place for the early music celebration, for which we now have two ambassadors. We have Sarah Jeffery, Lucie Horsch, both recorder players, both very accomplished, both in very individual ways. Welcome. Can we start maybe by getting into how you feel as a musician today?
Yes, so in my musical life, at the moment, I tend to wear 4 different hats. So I'm a performer, I'm a professor at the Royal College of Music in London, I write books of music, and I have a YouTube channel. So 4 very different musical activities.
I see myself as mostly a musician, but I think what links all of my activities together is that it's about communication or stepping out of yourself, whether you're doing research for a program or collaborating with different musicians. It's always about sort of finding a connection with something that's bigger than yourself. Mm-hmm. So maybe I would call myself a communicator or a creator. Mm-hmm. I guess we're all artists, are creators in essence.
And what would you say is, in one sentence, your relationship to early music?
I would say fantasy. This works very nice in Dutch because fantasy, that means imagination, but it's also about stepping into a completely different world.
That's
Love
beautiful.
That. Yes.
Yeah.
Lucie?
The same way that it's this fascination with anything other than your own world. So going into early music always gives you an understanding of the past, or that's what you're striving for, and that makes you also understand yourself better. Because if you go into history, that has shaped also how we think and our aesthetic beliefs about music nowadays. So
you take that role serious in a way as a guide into that fantasy world.
That sounds like I'm a sort of a prophet. I wouldn't call myself that, but I do take it seriously because you want to do justice to the composers of the past. And actually to any composer, I sort of have the same attitude if I play contemporary or early music. It doesn't really change with that. You just want to find out what drove these composers to write down their music in this way.
It's Early Music Day, like we said, and I really want to know what you get out of playing early music, what it gives you that other repertoires maybe don't, or in a different way. But Sarah, can I ask you what you feel early music is? Is there maybe an ambiguity also in the term that could use some clarifying, or just your perspective?
So if I was explaining early music to somebody who was new to it, I would say simply it's a period of repertoire that we usually describe as up to around 1750, when Bach died. That's a very handy cutoff point. But this covers all of the centuries before that. That's obviously so much repertoire all around Europe and beyond. So we're covering the medieval period, the Renaissance, the early Baroque, high Baroque. But for me, it's also an approach to music. It's a style of repertoire, but we're also encouraged to ornament, to improvise, to research and dive into these manuscripts and find something that we as modern players can play. So it's a style and a time period, but really an approach. So that's my rough definition. I'm sure there'll be people who would like to add to that or argue with it. I don't know, have I
that's great,
left anything out?
I think what I just realized is what's special about early music is, of course, the fact that it's further in the past, which means that it has been around for longer. So I feel always that the language of early music is much more familiar in some ways to big groups of big groups of people. So in that sense, I feel like it's the most maybe direct music that has a direct impact on the listener, because we sort of recognize, we go from the dominant to the tonic, these relationships that feel very natural. You don't even need to have studied it to feel, this is a cadence resolving, or
These are somewhat technical terms, of course. I think when you would play something, when we play a piece of music, it would be immediately obvious. But would you say that early music is, to use a dirty word maybe, is it easy?
Ooh.
Is it...
No.
How is it complex, would you say? How do you play with it?
Yeah, it's really a language. So what the information we may have in the notation compared with a piece of Brian Ferneyhough, for example, may at first glance look simpler, but the language itself asks so much from the performer or the editor. You're required... See, now I don't want to put people off getting into it, because there's quite a lot if you want to be very authentic, let's say there's quite a lot you need to know, but that is so wonderful to learn. So the process of producing a performance of early music, there's so much that's not written down. So the virtuosity lies in a different area.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That is also behind what is written down, that you need to make more of it than what's only on the paper.
Yeah.
Listening to you, I get a sense it's about learning a language. It's maybe about developing a personality, your own personality, your musical persona. Is that maybe where early music is a relevant tool for a musician today?
It is important to know something about the styles that came before you. So I just really am grateful for having started with the recorder, because that's already an instrument that has this history of early music so much connected to the instrument itself, that it was only natural to start with playing a lot of Telemann and Bach and Vivaldi.
In my opinion, there is nothing better than making music with other people. Early music lends itself so well to that, because you're encouraged to listen to one another, especially when improvising or producing a continuo, playing together. And I think this comes at every level. We have phenomenal performers coming with orchestras and chamber music, but I think it should have a real place in the community as well. Amateur musicians playing together. Like, how amazing would it be if it was completely normal in your town to have an early music group where people get together, put some music up, read through it, and they actually make music too. I honestly think that's what society needs.
Yeah, and I was suddenly thinking about one of my fondest memories from my early recorder years when I just started playing. I was always doing Telemann duets with different recorder students in a music school. And this is so much fun, like just two voices and you're sort of dialoguing together, and you learn so much from reacting to each other, and yeah, it's just a style that really enables you to be playful and learn a lot from that. Yeah.
So I think, I can only endorse that idea for each town to have its own early music ensemble and let the revolution begin.
Let's make it happen.
And you, Sarah, maybe you also want to share an early memory from your musical history?
Yes. So a very early memory I have is of being 5 years old and putting on a CD in the living room of Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata on the piano and interpretive dancing around the room. I would do this all the time. And I just remember feeling that music in every fiber of my being and being completely consumed with joy and dancing. And that is something I try and hold on to today when I'm making music or listening. And it's something I would do a lot as a child and now to music that I love. And I think anyone can find that. It can be any style of music, but that feeling of complete joy when you're listening. Yeah, it's great.
We, as musicians, we probably all try to go back to that natural reaction to music, because it's such a pure physical reaction to it. And that's what we hope to also probably inspire in the audiences that we play for. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think as professionals, we gain so much knowledge, and sometimes this can weigh on us, and we have to remember to look through that again and find the simplicity and the joy, whilst we're holding this whole kind of ecosystem of experience in our head.
Maybe this is a good bridge to ask how you came to the recorder, or the recorder came to you. How did this become your instrument?
My mum played a little bit of recorder, and she started a recorder club at my primary school. So she gave me a book and a plastic soprano and started to teach me. And it wasn't until I was about 17, actually, that I went to a different school. There was an amazing music teacher. And she said, well, have you thought about studying music? And people can do that? I had no idea. So she took me to the Open Dare Conservatoire. This was completely new universe. But I was like, this is what I want to do. So I went home and told my mum, I'm going to be a recorder player. And somehow she said, okay, like, I think you should go for it. And somehow it worked, because at that point I'd never had a lesson. I just took my flute lessons and secretly applied it to the recorder in my bedroom at home. This is how cool.
Until you were 17.
Yeah. This is how cool a teenager I was. When I was meant to be practicing my flute, I was practicing my recorder. And so I just started working, and somehow I got into the conservatoire and just never looked back.
And how about you, Lucie?
I had heard two girls at my primary school play the recorder. They were twins, and they were a few years older, so I probably looked up to them. And there was a school performance, and then I think probably because music was already around in my family, and my older brother plays the violin, it was a sort of a natural thing to learn an instrument. But it was definitely my decision to start with the recorder. And I think my parents in the beginning, they thought she might switch to another instrument at some point, because they had the same sort of set of prejudices maybe against the instrument. But they just learned with me how much the recorder has to offer, and it became this big journey that I'm still hasn't finished.
Maybe getting into those prejudices, let's turn them around immediately, but can we maybe touch on a few? Maybe it's sort of the instrument that many people in the West get thrown into their hands. But I think many schools actually start with the recorder. Hence a lot of trauma, if we're allowed to say that. Some people are completely put off of music by having been forced to play the recorder. How can we not have that happen, do you think? What is the key to make the recorder the gateway drug to a good life in music?
Yeah, I mean, in some way, it did inspire you. This sort of introduction through a group setting inspired you to take the instrument itself seriously and to really make it your own. Yeah. But in many cases, it's true that it doesn't inspire people. So I think generally, I would say it's better to let children choose what instrument they want to learn. But of course, that's not always practically possible. And the recorder is an instrument that requires like very simple embouchure, you could say. So to produce a sound is relatively easy. So you can also understand why it was being used, why it has been used as a school instrument so frequently.
The recorder in an educational setting needs to be taught by somebody who knows how to play it. In the same way, you wouldn't trust a swimming teacher or a driving instructor who could not swim or drive. Of course, it's not a life or death situation. But just to be a little bit broad about it, what we need for music is fully supported and funded wider music ecosystem at every level, from the beginners to the pathways for improvers, advanced towards professional. That needs to be present at every point. From teachers, for example, in schools and music schools, who are very competent and passionate about their instrument. From that point of view, I don't think it matters if that is recorder, ukulele, xylophone, singing, consort of viols. You need that. You need the teacher to be able to teach it, have that passion, and from there have steps where people can continue. And if we look into the community, we used to have amazing choirs, the fanfare, brass bands, youth orchestras. When this is present, you can follow it through. And then someone like me, who didn't come from a musical universe, then it's possible to follow some recorder here, singing in the school, a piano lesson, flute in the orchestra, and to kind of follow stepping stones towards a musical career, if that's what you want. But that all has to be present. So I think when these questions inevitably come in the media, the recorder in schools has declined, no one's doing this. That's looking at a tiny snapshot of a bigger picture. That is the whole foundation upon which rests our concert audience. Because if we value music at every level, then that's going to grow an audience who really care about it and then want to come to concerts.
Yeah.
At this point, I wanted to chat about a major project in your life, and maybe starting with you, Lucie. What would you say is one of the biggest things you've done in your very young career, let's say, but still?
Yes.
Where have you been cooking?
Well, so the project that comes to mind is my album, the Franz Bruggen Project, which I had the big honor to record on historical recorders. It felt like coming home, and at the same time it made me feel it sort of eliminates your own ego completely, because these instruments are almost like a teacher. So I really had to be very respectful when approaching them, and really ask each recorder, and they all have completely different personalities, ask all of them, what do you need from me as a player, and be very flexible. So it was like a big learning experience also as a player, as a musician, as a lover of early music. All of these aspects came together in that project.
Speaking about keeping the recorder far outside its box, I think that is your life goal in general. What would you say your big project is?
So I've been working for the past 10 years on my YouTube channel, Team Recorder. And there I publish roughly weekly videos about the recorder, tutorials, historical videos, interviews, reviews. In the meantime, it's a very kind of wide universe of the recorder. And this has grown into a community over the past 10 years. So that's become really a big focus of my work. There was a lot of time where I felt like the only recorder player in the world. And I was sure there were other people out there who feel like that too. So I wanted to find this team, and at that time I didn't know how many people were out there, but there's a lot. And one really nice thing about Team Recorder, personally for me, is that every video I have to research. Yeah. So there might be something that I will have learned about as a student back in my bachelor's, and then it's like a new research project every single week into why the voice flute exists, or the difference between French and Italian Baroque, or why does 17th century music sound like this? And it's so much fun as a musician to allow myself to dive into that every single week. So the research aspect is really fulfilling.
Have there been things that you've reconsidered or maybe reread where current research changed your mind about what you learned way back when? Is there something there?
Yes, definitely. Many things. I mean, every day. And it's also nice when that happens, because you keep being surprised, or you sort of challenge your own old beliefs. And I think that's very important. To also look at, why am I actually playing it this way, or why do I have this habit of interpreting something this way? And an example that I was thinking of now that also has to do with the accessibility of information nowadays is that when I recorded my first Vivaldi album, I wanted to, of course, look at the manuscripts. That was the least, that was the most simple step of research I could do, was look at what did Vivaldi actually write down. And then I discovered sort of coincidentally that in the last movement of the La Notte concerto, there's suddenly a half bar written and then a huge ink splash where he's just like, it's also very messily written down, which also indicates the speed at which Vivaldi was writing, which is already very interesting. And has a lot of, how do you say, implications for how to look at his music. But anyways, there was this half bar, and then he just shifts the bar line accidentally, I guess, to a half bar, and it's till the end of the movement, it's a half bar shifted. And my conclusion was, apparently these bar lines are really not so significant as I thought before. So now I mostly, when I approach any music written by Vivaldi, it's about the structure within the harmonies that he writes, or the melodic phrasing that determine the phrasing of what you should play, and not the bar lines. They're quite insignificant.
Sarah, earlier you spoke about having many hats, and I think we can say the same thing about the musicians who created the music or wrote down the music we play today and which we consider early music. Do you see any parallels between what you do and the people who did this music back in the day? Yes, well,
I definitely like that in the early music practice, as a musician, you were required to be a performer, but also an improviser and a composer, and you had to have many musical skills, not just be specialized in one thing. And I think that's something that early musicians are really great at. And if I look back to all of my colleagues who I've met, I found that early musicians are very special people. We tend to be very open-minded, very enthusiastic about learning, willing to take on different roles. And I think that's quite necessary in a collaboration as well. So wearing those different hats, that's something that I like to identify with. Mm-hmm.
I think also what is essential for early music is that we very often indeed need to do the research, but also make our own arrangements. Because as soon as you do the research, you realize that maybe what is available is not, it's just one version of the truth. And then you realize, you need a different setting for this specific, and I love working with the limitations of, for example, a concert opportunity where you're like, we have this instrumentation, so you have to make it work in that way. So you have to create a little part, and you just learn a lot from going into these unexpected things that you need to make things work practically nowadays.
Early music as a tool for creation rather than reproduction.
Yeah, and I think with all of this, it encourages us to keep rewriting the canon as well, because we tend to think today that if music has survived and is popular, that's because it is the best piece. But actually, if we look back to the time of Franz Bruggen, there was so much less music available. It's due to the scholarship of people that have brought it out. And I know that many of us are really researching into female composers. That's a nice parallel, because of course, if we were active musicians 400 years ago, that may not have been possible. Yeah. So when I'm putting together, for example, a program by female composers, I'm looking at how were they able to be composers? They had a rich patron, or they were in a convent. So this is all really necessary historical context that enriches our understanding of music. I find that very interesting. Because Lucie, I believe you're working on a program of music by female composers as well.
La Musica is a title because the word music is female, so without the feminine or female influence, of course, many music couldn't have existed, even music written by men. Like the role of women was so often, the wife of Bach, how many children did they have?
Yes.
Like he couldn't have written a cantata every week if she didn't take care of the entire household.
Yeah, I bet no one was asking Bach, who's babysitting the children then? Which is what happens whenever I go anywhere.
Looking at early music today, maybe as a final question, do you have a big hope maybe for what we're doing?
I would love for early music to become ingrained into popular culture as other, let's say, pastimes or hobbies are today. And I'm thinking specifically of sports. If we look at things like CrossFit or high rocks, which is very popular now. What we have is a popular consciousness of this. We have a community aspect, and we have people really getting into it and kind of nerding out and putting it into their day-to-day life. And I think this needs to happen in music as well. And we're almost there, we're on the cusp of it. So as somebody who is active on social media, what I see all the time at the moment is specifically the medieval core aesthetics, very popular. So you have people doing their get ready with me, like my medieval core aesthetic fashion. And I see an opportunity here. Yes, we can get into this with music. So what I would love is for groups of people to be coming together in real life, making music together. Then they can go to concerts, they can listen to recordings. But for early music to be a living practice amongst the community, and not only a performer and an audience, but for it to go out and be alive as well. What I just said, it sounds a bit like everyone should make early music for all, and of course I believe that. I think we also need to acknowledge that it's a bit of a weird, nerdy, quirky thing to do. These enthusiastic subcultures should also be allowed to exist, whatever that is. So I don't need everyone in the world to pick up a hurdy-gurdy and start playing, but those who are interested should be able to access it.
That's a really essential thing that everyone who is passionate about early music should want. More exchange, more... we live in a globalized world, so I think that's a very accessible goal, is for everybody to be more connected, because we already are. But also my hope is, for it to stay vibrant and to stay alive. Maybe it's a bit of a cliche, but I think that is a continuous effort that needs to be made to keep I think you said it previously, very nice, to keep the canon alive, or...
To keep reconsidering the canon, to keep refreshing the canon.
To keep refreshing the canon. Yeah, I really hope that early music stays contemporary in that it keeps influencing us as a society and keeps being relevant.
And I think that's beautiful. That's couldn't wish for a better conclusion, really. And with that, I want to thank both of you, Sarah Jeffery, Lucie Horsch, for being with us today on 21st of March, Early Music Day. I can only say to everybody, go out, have a good time with the music, and thank you for watching.